Hello and welcome to this recording of why smart accountants still feel stuck and what to do about it. Today we're going to be looking at the M section of the impact module to find out all about mindset and how you can change your mindset to get the results you want. Let's get started. And welcome to why smart accountants still feel stuck and what to do about it. And today's webinar is all around mindset. I've got a slideshow to share with you. I've got some personal stories. I've got some questions for you as we go along. And I've also got some of your questions in the bank, if you like, that you've asked as you've registered, which we will be dealing with and going through as we talk. However, if you've got a question that comes up during the course of the presentation that you would like to ask, I always say I like the stupid questions. Generally speaking, the stupid questions are the easy ones to answer. Please feel free to pop it in the Q&A box and I will gladly answer it as I go through. So without further ado, let me press, we press that one and then that one, and then we should be able to press that. And with a bit of luck, you should now have a slide that you can see. So today's rules, if you like. Firstly, it's not really a rule, but it's an acknowledgement and a thank you for being here when you are so busy. I know it's the 2nd of March. We've got VAT returns and whatnot that are due at the end of this week. So thank you for that. And it's also a bit of a challenging subject for lots of people in that mindset and the way that we work and the way that we think and our belief systems and value systems is, for some people, is a bit of a challenging topic. So thank you for coming along today. And then just to say that you don't need to share publicly if you don't want to. So I think there's 3 questions that I'm going to ask you during the course of the presentation today. Actually think about it. You can post it in the chat box. You can post it to the Q&A box if you want me to see it and nobody else to see it, or you can just make a note on your pad and think about it and go from there. But you don't need to share it publicly if you don't want to. So as I said a moment ago, today is all about mindset, and mindset is the M within impact. And impact stands for intention, mindset, productivity, altogether, which is the team aspect of running your practice, customers, which is all about the quality of the customers that you've got and how you work with them, and then finally the T, which is all about turnover and how you increase your GRF and therefore by default increase your profitability. So that's impact. And as I say, today is all around mindset. And for me, I'm fascinated by this. If you're within Bounce, you've got access now to the business school, and there's 2 courses in there. There's one around Mind Your Language Simon, or one called Mind Your Language Simon, and one called Break Through Your Glass Ceiling. And for the last 25 years or so, I've been fascinated with how the mind works and how the language patterns that you use and how you talk to yourself has an effect on your success or peace of mind or whatever language you want to call it. And I was sharing, as it happened, I was sharing last Friday with somebody that I'm a NLP master practitioner and also a chartered hypnotherapist. So way back in 2006, I qualified as a hypnotherapist, and that's coming up for me quite a bit at the moment. But anyway, so it's all about the language and the conversations that you have with yourself. So the agenda for today. What we're going to do is we're going to look at how most people think they should be, and you'll see all this on social media and you'll have stories in your head, but we'll go through how most people think they should be, the core problems or challenges that a poor mindset gives you, the pain that causes you, and then what most accountants and bookkeepers really want, so where it is that you want to go to. And then we're going to have a look at the obstacles that are stopping you. And the idea of looking at those obstacles is it then gives you the consciousness to be able to go out there and remove them. Um, and then it says what intentions really mean. That should say what mindsets really means rather than intentions. So that's a mistake on the slide. But yeah, what mindset really means. And then ultimately your next step. So what can you do as a result of being here today? What action are you going to take as a consequence of being here today? And then there's an invitation from us to move forward if you want to under a no obligation thing, blah, blah, blah. So that's your agenda. So let's have a look at how most people think you should be. Well, if you look at anywhere, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all these different places, you'll get an impression about how the world believes that you should be in a mindset and a strong mind and stiff upper lip and all that sort of stuff. So there's this belief in lots of people that they need to be confident all the time. They need to put on a brave face, and they certainly shouldn't be doubting themselves. They should have this clarity about where it is that they're going, a determination and a set goal and a set intention, and know exactly what it is that they're going to do in order to get there. There's this pressure to have it all together, to be calm, and there's poems about if you should lose your head when all about you is losing the house. So it's about being cool, calm and collective, and it's certainly about not feeling uncomfortable. It's about being confident and courageous and having the ability to know intuitively what it is that you're going to do. And we have these conversations all the time. We see the social media, the advertising and whatnot telling us that this is how we should be like. But it's about being where we think we should be decisive and certain and know exactly what it is that we want, which is all rubbish, it's all bullshit, and it's all stuff that we put on ourselves, as you're going to see as I go through today. So the first question, whilst I have a cup of tea, is this: by this stage in your practice, how did you expect to feel? Okay, not where you expected to be or have achieved, but how did you expect to feel? So did you expect to feel comfortable, confident, knowing what you're doing, to have self-worth? Anyway, I'm putting words into your head now, so I'm just going to have a quick cup of tea whilst you just think about that. But in your practice, how did you expect to feel by this stage? And if you just want to write it down or put it in the chat box if you're comfortable enough to, or in the Q&A box if you want me to know and not nobody else to see it. Brilliant, Emma. Thank you. Yeah, more in control is a one that comes up a lot, and we're going to be talking about that in a little while. Control is a really interesting one. I have a challenge with control. When I was growing through greenstones and extracting myself out of greenstones, giving up that control or the ability for other people to make decisions was something that I massively was challenged by, until I learned that control is just an illusion. So we are never in control of anything because of all of the outside influences that that happen to us. So there's an illusion of control, but we're never actually in control. So thank you for that, Emma. Lorraine's got more confident. Yeah, more confident is one again that comes up a lot, and Martine has got it as well, and not so insecure. There's a really interesting thing. We're going to talk a bit about fear, Martine, towards the end of today's presentation. We're going to talk about fear and what that means for you. And I have a bit of a belief system around fear now that I believe helps me move forward, even when I am feeling insecure, frightened, fearful, or whatever it is. And then Laura said less integral and less like a headless chicken. Yeah, I think we all feel a bit like a headless chicken sometimes, Laura. It's one of those challenges. And Carly's got more confident too as well. So that's 3 more confidence out of the 5 replies. So thank you, Carly, Laura, Martine, Lorraine, and Emma for sharing. We're definitely going to start playing with that in about 10 or 15 minutes with regards to how you can move that forward. So the first thing I want to say to you, as you just said a minute ago, is give yourself a break. Right? Just give yourself a break. You are doing the best you can with the tools you've got. Yeah. So you're in this position, you're in a place where you are, and you're doing the best that you can. And it's like, comparing you to the outside world. Comparison is the thief of joy. It sets unrealistic expectations of yourself. And again, I'm going to use this phrase. I used it last month. Is to look after the pennies and the pounds. Look after yourself. So instead of being totally confident, could you allow yourself to be more confident? Or what could I do this week or this day in order to be more confident? And over time, with a bit of practice and a bit of movement, then you'll become more and more confident, and therefore by looking after the pounds you will ultimately looking after the pennies, you'll ultimately look after the pounds. So the core problems that I see when I am working with practitioners, the core problem, and this is a big one, is knowing what to do but not doing it. Yeah. Now, knowing what to do, we all know intuitively in our heads the questions that keep coming around, the thoughts that keep coming around when we're laying in bed at night on the way to sleep. These things come up and we know what to do, but we're not doing it. Now, I have a quote around procrastination, and procrastination in my world, procrastination is the time it takes to become emotionally ready to take action on a decision you've already made. Yeah, so procrastination is the time it takes to become emotionally ready, so into courage, acceptance, peace, and all those sort of things. The time it takes to become emotionally ready to take action on a decision that you've already made. And that's why what we do is we know what should really be happening, but we come up with all these different reasons as to why not to do it, and we put the problems off. And invariably, nearly always, those problems are a conversation. And it's a conversation with a team member, or a conversation with a customer, or a conversation with a supplier. And at the very highest level, it's almost always a conversation with yourself as to what it is that you need to do and the way you need to go. But invariably, one of the problems is that we put off having those conversations. And the reason we put that off is because we are afraid of where that conversation might go and how the other person, when we're looking at their approval, how the other person might react when we have that conversation. Another thing that we do, another problem that we have, is we overwork instead of deciding. Now, we come up with all these different ideas, we put them on the to-do list, and then we can work. And rather dealing with the big thing, we can do lots of little things, and we feel productive while we're doing it. But at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, or whenever it is that we sit down and review, if we even sit down and review, we look back and think, okay, we had lots of dopamine there because we did lots of things, but we didn't really move the dial forward. So it gets to 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, and we feel like we've been busy all week, but have done nothing. And that's where that problem of overworking, instead of deciding, if we made a decision as to where it is that you wanted to go with confidence, or a direction that you wanted to go, then all of a sudden the overworking dies down because you've got clarity over what problems it is that you need to work on. We try and carry too much. We try and carry too much in our head. We try and take on the responsibilities of other people. If you're anything like me, if you've got a little bit of time in your diary, or there's a little bit of slack and somebody comes along, you'll take on their business for you, their problems for you, in order to have something to do, in order to keep busy. And that's the old problem of saying yes when you actually mean no. And that, generally speaking, again, comes from people seeking other people's approval, wanting to be accepted by the community that you belong to. Now, all of those core problems lead to these feeling like you should be further ahead by now, further ahead of where you are. You want to be, when you created the practice, when you set up in business, you had this dream, even if it was just doing a better job than what your old employer did. You had this dream and you had this idea as to where it is that you're going to go, and you got it kind of mapped out in your head, and you should be further, in your opinion, you should be further along. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer, as we're going to talk about in a minute. It's a bit of a misnomer because when you was way back when, in 2002, when I bought Greenstones, for me to be where I am now, it'd be unbelievable. Couldn't actually believe it. But am I as far ahead now as where I would like to be? No, I'm not. So that goalpost, they keep moving. As you get more and more, as you get better and better, as you get further and further along, then you get other stuff to do. So the goalposts keep moving all of the time. They all lead to you feeling responsible for everything. And I don't know whether this comes up for you, but I have a work family and I have a home family, and I get sucked into being caring for, responsible for the team and making sure that they're happy and they're being looked after and their mortgages are all sorted out. And it's a bit like, I feel a bit like a father figure, both at home and at work. And then I also have this which seeps into my life with my friends, and I end up organizing things and all the rest of it. Yeah, so feeling responsible for everything. Worrying about what people will think, again, is another big one for me. So how good is the content? How good is the webinar? How good is the LinkedIn post? How good is the work that I'm doing? How good are the questions that I'm asking? Are they good enough? And what will people think about me and the way that I'm working? And I think about that and worry about it a lot, not anywhere near as much as what I used to, but all of that emotional energy, that thinking time that's sucked up into thinking like that is time that you can't spend or not spending on doing a better job. And then we've got this feeling of not being fully comfortable with the success that we're having. You know, there's this thing within Western society, and particularly in this country, where you can't shout about or talk about the successes that you're having because you think that, well, we talk about it all the time. If like a successful sports person makes the back pages, and then the tabloids at some point will knock them off the pedestal. Yeah, we'll knock them off a pedestal. Yeah, we don't like it, and therefore we think if we talk about the things that we're doing and the successes that we're having, then some bugger will come along and they'll knock us off a pedestal. Yeah, so we don't tend to talk about it. And the story I always share within this is the swimming pool story. It's in Banish the Bottleneck, and it's about how when I bought the new house, the house that I'm currently sat in, it came with a swimming pool. I didn't particularly want the swimming pool, but my wife at the time did want the swimming pool. So anyway, I love the house. I still love the house, and so we bought the swimming pool. Now I didn't know that the team were fascinated or interested in where we were going to move to. I told them that we were moving, but I didn't tell them where we was going to move to. And a couple of them went on to Rightmove or whatever it was way back in the day, and investigated where we was moving to, and they'd found the house, and they'd found it, got it a swimming pool. And back at this time, we was doing weekly team meetings, 12:30 on a Wednesday. And at the end, we always said, any other business or anything else anybody would like to ask. And at that point, one of the team members said to me, Simon, has your new house got a swimming pool? And without missing a beat, and I knew it was wrong, but without missing a beat, I said no, because I was ashamed, I was embarrassed about the success that the practice was having, and therefore by default the success that I was having. It didn't seem right that little old Simon from Leverington in Wisbech could have a house with a swimming pool. It just didn't seem real. It didn't seem fair, and all those sort of things that went along with it. So anyway, I said no in that meeting. We all walked out, and it wasn't until I was driving home that night, not to the house with the swimming pool, to my old house, and I started questioning values, the values that I have around being honest and being brave, and ultimately what it was about my own self-worth that I couldn't say to a team member or share with the team in my success. They were helping me and are still helping me, but they were helping me build what it is that we've got to today, whether that be at work or the house that I've got and the cars that I drive and all the rest of it. So it proper challenged me. And I mean, that was 2009 when, 2008 when this happened. And I still think about it a lot now. And I'm way better around seeking other people's approval and just telling people what I think and living how I want to. But if you don't get over that, then effectively you live to the expectations of other people. So even if you could be better, then you self-sabotage. One of the questions Paul asked, how do I stop self-sabotaging? Well, one of the ways of self-sabotage is to remove those limiting beliefs around your own self-worth and what other people expect of you, especially parents. So the way that they worked hard and the way that they was brought up. So to remove that, and as soon as you take that lid off, then there isn't any reason to self-sabotage anymore, because you're just on the journey to where it is that you're going. But anyway, that's the That's the swimming pool story, and I keep going back to it and thinking about it whenever I'm challenged. So, my next question to you is: what's the one conversation you keep pushing back a week? Yeah, there is nearly always something where you think, I'm going to have this on Monday morning or Friday afternoon. It's like, I'm going to have that conversation this week or next week. And then it gets to about Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, and think, oh, I can't do it this week. I'm going to do it next week. Yeah. And it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And it's that old coaching question: what problem are you postponing in the vain hope that it will go away? So, what problem are you postponing taking action on because of the vain hope that that problem will go away? I'll just give you 30 seconds or so to think about that. Yeah. Fee increases, Martin. Fee increases is a classic. It's normally fee increases and conversations with team members that get pushed back. Thank you. So, what's the conversation you keep pushing back a week in the hope that it will go away? And we'll come to fee increases in a minute, Martins. There's a lot into that insecure stuff as well around that. So, what do you really want? What do bookkeepers and accountants really want from their accountancy practice? Well, most of you want clarity. They want to know where they're going. They want some direction as to where they're going. They want confidence in their ability in the world at large in order to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. They want to be rewarded fairly, not extravagantly. Most of them want to be rewarded fairly for the work that they are actually doing rather than feeling undervalued. A team that they trust, so they can delegate stuff to their team and then not have to worry about micromanaging it and thinking about it and going back. But ultimately, the top thing is around the decisions to feel cleaner. So there's more clarity over where it is that they're going. And this, again, is coming up a lot in conversations that I'm having at the moment with one-to-one customers. It's not about collecting the ideas or coming up with ideas or solutions to the problem they've got. It's around support in making the decision in order to move them forward. And lots of time they've already made the decision. It's their challenge to actually implement that decision and move forward. So it's around again, another way of putting it is giving people permission to act. So they know what it is that they're going to do. They just need a second opinion in order to move it on. And Laura said you hit the nail on the head with both. Yeah, and Laura, it's a really interesting challenge. But in addition to those things, what you really want is more peace of mind. If I sum it up, it's to be quieter, let's say more meditative, to be more peaceful in the actions that we take. Not Buddhist monk type peacefulness. That way, that's out of reach, I think, of lots of us, but to actually feel more relaxed and to have the time and headspace in order to do what it is that we want to do. And way back at the Connect event, I say way back at the Connect event, it's only a month ago, but we talked about the value pyramid and the top level of the value pyramid. This is around the value that we deliver to our customers. The top level of that is basically us delivering peace of mind to them. And that peace of mind comes in the shape of more profit, more time, and more surety about the tax fares and their accounts being looked after, so they're not going to get the collar felt, not the felt collar, the collar felt by HMRC. So that's the top level of the pyramid. So what would you charge? Here we go, Emma and Martine. So what would you charge if you genuinely believed in your value? If you truly believed that you are as good as what you think you are, as good as what you say you are, then what would you be charging? And ultimately, you will be better than what you think you are. And the fee increase one, again, we'll have a look at this in a bit more detail in a moment, but the fee increase one, it's like you pick your worst client, the worst client that you work with, the one that you really don't care, the one that you're kind of hoping and praying one day you'll get a professional clearance letter for. Pick on them and deliver the fee increase to them. And what you'll find is that they'll accept it, and then the next one will accept it, and the next one will accept it, and it will give you some confidence. So the only way that you can learn, the only way that you can demonstrate that you're getting better and developing is if you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, so it's only the same as comfort zone stuff. Yeah. In order for you to be at the edge of your boundary, the edge of your experience, you have to feel uncomfortable. And therefore, it then comes back to whether you have the desire to do it or not. It's a bit like when you're just learning to drive a car. Yeah, you got in that, it felt uncomfortable. But most people want to drive a car. They want the independence that a car gives them. And therefore, they've got a big enough driver and they go out and feel uncomfortable and go and learn to drive the car. So, what would you charge if you genuinely believed in your value, and then set that as your price? And most of you want a practice that works on purpose. Yeah. So, feeling control is one of the things that was brought up a minute ago. So, feeling control and know where you're going and know what you are doing in a way that feels practical, deliberate, is another way of putting it. So anyway, what's stopping you? What are these obstacles? Yeah. Um, I'm going to go through these and I'm going to give you a way of removing them that's going to take practice. But before we get to what's stopping you, it's not, as I've already said, it's not lack of ideas. It's not the lack of systems and processes that you've put in place. It's never, very rarely is it a lack of knowledge. It might be a bit of a lack of tax knowledge, but you've got ChatGPT and all the AIs out there now and the Facebook groups and all the rest of it that will help you get over that. Very rarely is it the lack of clients or the lack of team. What it actually is your emotional state. Yeah, it's your decision, which is effectively what your emotional state is. It's your decision to be in the emotional state that you're currently in. And I'm going to go through and give you an idea as to how you can improve your emotional state. There's no right or wrong emotional state. There are just useful or useless or more useful emotional states. So all emotional states are there for a reason and have a purpose. It's only a question as to whether you're using the most useful one at any moment in time. So there are three that fundamentally come up for me when I'm talking to practitioners. The number one is nearly always fear. And what fear does is it creates procrastination. It stops you from doing things. Now, fear always comes from scarcity or lack. Yeah, so lack of something. When you're younger, it's normally fear around finances. And as you get older, it turns into fear around health and the longevity of life and how long you're going to live. Yeah. So generally speaking, the younger you are, the more the fear is around finances. And as you move through your years, it turns into security of health and security of when you're going to die, basically, how long you're going to live for. Now, those two things, for money and health, once you've identified them, then you've got to accept that in order to move forward, you're going to have to experience that fear because that fear is there to protect you. However, it's probably not the most useful emotion that you can have if you're doing a fee increase, for example. Now, as you're doing the fee increase, the fear is coming up, which means that you are already being courageous. Yeah. So you can't have courage without fear. Yeah. If you've got courage without fear, then you're drunk or whatever. But you've got to have the two. So whenever I'm afraid to do something or afraid of something that's going to happen, I'm fearful of a situation I'm going into, I have to remind myself, or I choose to remind myself, that I'm being courageous. I'm expanding my ability to feel and to deliver. And because that's uncomfortable or out of my comfort zone, then naturally I'm going to be fearful. Yeah. And it's that fear that pumps the adrenaline. Yeah. The cortisol charges the adrenaline in order for you to be the best that you can be. So fear is the number one. And number two is pride. Yeah. Now, we have, and this one's a really interesting emotion because in lots of circumstances, in lots of situations, pride feels good. Yeah, but it's a less useful emotion because pride is there. It stops you taking action. So if I'm proud of my house, proud of my car, proud of my business, I will want to protect it through fear of losing it. Yeah. So it takes ownership of it. It becomes a possession when in reality, nothing is really in our possession. We're just using it for the time that we're using it for. And if you're in pride, again, I've had this conversation with myself a million and one times. If you're in pride, then you'll take less risky actions, if any actions at all, through fear of losing what it is that you've already got, because you don't want to go and stand at the school gate and say, oh no, my car's rubbish, or I'm not going on a holiday this year because I've not made enough money, or I'm having to sell my stocks and shares because I've made a loss, or whatever it is. So the more you feel in pride, the more you are restricting yourself and protecting yourself through seeking other people's approval. So fear comes from fear and doubt. Pride comes from guilt and shame. Yeah. So it's all about being embarrassed by things if they go wrong. So you hold on, you become attached to whatever it is that you have got. And then the last one is low self-worth. Now, that can be two ways that the low self-worth is created. One, you place too much emphasis on what other people are telling you. So if you've got negative people in your life, they tell you shit and you think, oh yeah, that's me, and you take their affirmations or their opinions of you on. Or worse, because this is more difficult to spot, is when you are talking yourself down. Yeah. So I'm not good enough. I didn't do that fast enough. I could have worked harder. I could have charged more money, etc., etc., etc. So the low self-worth caps the growth because you don't believe that you deserve any more on it, any more than you've currently got. And the really big challenge around that is around pricing, because you think, oh, if I don't charge enough or I don't charge that much money, they'll think better of me, and therefore it caps your growth. Yeah. So the three things that are stopping you are the fear that makes you delay, the pride that keeps you isolated from others. You have this barrier up and you do stuff in order to protect what you've got, and then the low self worth, which keeps you playing smaller. Now, what does mindset really mean? Yeah, because it can come across as quite fluffy. It could come across as positive self-thought, positive thinking. I remember many moons ago, I went on a Tony Robbins seminar, and he talked about positive mindsets, and he talked about going out in the front garden and the garden being full of weeds. Now, if you went back into your house, closed your eyes and walked out into the garden and said, there is no weeds, there is no weeds, there is no weeds, when you opened your eyes, there will still be weeds there. Yeah. So it's not about positively trying to change the reality as you see it. It's about thinking differently, feeling differently about the reality that you are currently in. And that is relatively, it's the story that you tell yourself. Yeah. So when you're thinking about situations and thinking about things that you're going to have to move on, or situations that you're going to have to change, you'll have this narrative, this story in your head about how you're going to do that, what might go wrong, what will go wrong, how the other person might react, how the fee is not really, it's too expensive, and all those sort of stuff. So your mindset is really the conversation that you're having with yourself in your head. And in addition to that, it's around the meaning that you attach to the events that are happening. Now, there's a great speaker that we have on evolution. He talks about good thing, bad thing, who knows? So when something happens, you attach meaning to that event. And in doing that, it could be a positive meaning or a negative meaning. Yeah. Now, whatever it is that's happened, as long as you learn, and this is my belief system, as long as I'm learning from whatever it is that's happened, then it can only ever be a positive thing, yeah, a positive learning point. There's another great coaching question about what is the gift in this? What is the learning in this? Yeah, and if you go into that, then you can attach your positivity to any event, and then you can use that and move forward. And then invariably, the story that you're telling yourself improves as well. And then we've got the emotional state that you default to under pressure. Now, we all live, and it's a bit more deeper than this, but we all live in this world where we're seeking control, approval, or security. So we're seeking control of the environment and ourselves, and the environment is made up of the physical stuff and the people within it. Then we have the approval world where we are looking for the approval of other people. Basically, we want to be part of a community because we know if we're part of a community, we're in it together, then we are safer. So we seek other people's approval in order to stay part of that community. And then, as I've already talked about, the security of self, which is fear. So the security or scarcity around money and health, or ultimately death. Now, we will predominantly sit in one of those three wants, and whichever one it is means that we'll take actions and decisions from a slightly different place to people sit in one of the other three wants. And then ultimately, how you react drives the results that you get. Okay. So when something happens, you'll have a thought, and I'm going to talk you through this in a minute. When something happens, you'll have a thought. That thought will drive an emotion. The emotion will drive an action. Once you've taken the action, you'll get a result. And then once you've got those results, you then have the story that you tell yourself, which will then generate different thoughts, which will hopefully drive different emotions and therefore different actions and different results. So where do your results come from? Well, you can start on this wheel at any point, okay? You don't have to start with thinking. It normally starts with thinking because that's what we've been taught. So the T stands for thoughts, obviously. So, and this is the tier model. So TEAR, yeah, tier: thoughts, emotions, actions, results. So what we generally do is we have a thought. We're having all these thoughts all the time, 60 to 80,000, I think it is, we have over the course of the day. Now, we know that we're having these thoughts, mostly. We're conscious of the thoughts, excuse me. And we can either decide to do something with them or move them on or whatever. Yep. Now, the positive thinking brigade will have you think, if you think positively, then you'll make progress. Yeah. Well, what happens is you have a positive thought and then you'll have a little voice in your head go, well, was it really positive? Yeah, so for every positive thought, you'll have a negative thought, and hopefully they'll be slightly more positive than what they are negative. But thoughts are incredibly difficult to, well, they're impossible to control because by the time you've thought it, it's already gone and you've already thought it. So you can't unthink a thought. If I tell you not to think of a pink elephant with yellow dots, you will think of a pink elephant with yellow dots, and now you're thinking of a pink elephant with yellow dots. You can't get that thought out of your head. However, those thoughts drive your emotions. Now, emotions are a different kettle of fish completely. Emotions give you the ability to choose them. So an emotion flows through the body, and it, generally speaking, it takes a lot longer to happen than a thought. So a thought is instant. An emotion, I mean, people have the same emotion for years and years and years, but you can have an emotion for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, a day, or whatever. But because they take longer to experience, that gives you the ability to decide if you want a more useful emotion. And I'll talk you through this and then I'll come back and I'll give you some examples. So an emotion gives you the ability to decide. Now, if you don't believe that, have a think about where you are and the situations that you find yourself in. So a classic example is that somebody could be mad with you, they could be angry with you. Say, for example, you're in a partnership relationship, husband, wife, or whatever it is, and you've got kids. Your partner or husband, wife could be angry at you, and then they turn to the children. They can be nice to the children, and then they can come back and be angry. So, in a split moment, they're choosing the emotional state that they're in, whoever it is, or depending on who it is that they're talking to. And there's loads of examples around how quickly you can unconsciously or consciously decide where your emotions are. Now, once you're in the most useful emotional state, if you take action from that, generally speaking, the action is more productive and will move you forward more, and therefore you'll get the results that you want, or you're more likely to get the results you want. Those results then drive your thoughts, which then give you more useful emotions, which then give you more useful actions, and round and round and round and round we go. So let me give you a couple of examples. Thought: you're driving somewhere and somebody cuts you up. You think, git. The emotion is anger. From that anger, you take the decision to chase that person. That person stops, you get out, they get out, you get a punch on the nose, they get a punch on the nose, whichever way around it is. Lots more anger. Thought: everybody that cuts me up is a plonker. And then that's the belief system that you create. However, it could be different. So you're driving somewhere, somebody cuts you up, you think, plonker, emotion, anger. Is this the most useful emotional state for me to be in at the moment? No. Yeah. They could have cut me up because they're rushing home to see a loved one, or they're on the way to the hospital, or I don't know, it's infinitely. They're going to the school to pick the kids up and they're running a bit late and they don't want them to be stood outside on the gate on their own. Yeah. There's 101 different things that we could have. Is this the most useful emotional state? No. What would be the most emotional? So forgiveness, love, whatever it is. Now, what action would you take from that emotional state? It'd be very different to the action that you would take from the emotional state of anger, but it might be that you decide to act by ringing a loved one and telling them that you love them or you miss them or whatever. And the result of that conversation will be very different to the getting punched on a nose conversation. So that is in its very simplest level, and we'll go through this a lot more within Bounce. And as I say, if you're in Bounce, you've got access to Break Through Your Glass Ceiling. We'll spend about an hour going through this on that course. You can go in and get access to that and learn way more about control, approval, and security, the tier model, and the SAW model, and those sort of things. But that's fundamentally it. Yeah. So you need to think about the fear, the pride, and ultimately your own self-worth, and then your decisions around those three, the emotional state that you're in when you're making those decisions, and then the action that you're going to take from it. Now, I've got some questions to answer, which I will share the answers to in a minute. But before I do that, I just want to give you an opportunity to take the next step. So if you're not in Bounce or Evolution, then there's no sales calls or anything like that, but there is an opportunity for you to identify your biggest problem areas. So Mark is now going to pop in the chat box a scorecard assessment process, and all you do basically is go in, answer the 31 questions, and you'll get a report comes back which tells you where you're strongest and where you need some improvement, and then off the back of that it will give you the ability to start thinking about and feeling around moving the practice on. So Mark just popped that in the chat box. If you haven't completed it before, or if you've completed it before a little while ago, click that link and away you go, and you can get your ideas around that assessment. Right, I am going to stop that share whilst I answer the questions that I've got over here. So Emma's asked, how can I get past the barrier of not wanting to take on staff? I have managed team before and hate it. Well, there's loads of questions in there, Emma, with regards to what you actually want to do. So the first question that's coming up for me is, why do you want to take on staff? If you don't like it and you don't want to do it, what benefit is there taking on staff? Is there a way that you could have more capacity and not have staff? So could you charge premium prices, make more money, charge premium prices, and still not have the team? So there's all sorts of conversations. So the requirement, if you like, to take on staff and buildings is, generally speaking, how we feel that businesses grow. There is an ego aspect to that as well. There's a pride aspect to it. So I'm going in an accountancy practice and I've got 22 people work for me is seen to be more successful than I have an accountancy practice and I've got 3 people that work for me. Yeah. So is it actually something that you want to do, something that you need to do, or is it an ego thing that is driving that? Now, if you really do want to get by the barrier of taking on more staff members, then the first thing that you do is ask yourself, what emotion am I experiencing when I think about taking on those teams? Yeah. Now, it might be fear of not having the money to pay them. It might be anger. It might be lack of control because they won't do the job as good as you. It might be some pride that you're really proud that you've taken on a new team member. And when you dig into those emotions, the emotional state that you're experiencing, when you think about that, you've then got to ask yourself, is this the most useful emotional state I can make this decision from? Okay. And if it isn't, then ask yourself, what would you do if I was in a more useful emotional state? And the big one for me is always around courage. So what would you do if you was being courageous? Yeah, and the first thing that comes into your head is normally the place that you go to, normally the first thing you do. So on that one, Emma, how do I get past the barrier of not wanting to take on staff? Do you really need to? Do you want to? Or is that ego and social pressure that's saying that you should do that? And if it's not that, and it is actually something that you want to do, have a think about the emotions and where you're taking the action from, and then how you can change that into a more useful emotional state and move from there. Laura has asked, how can I stay enthused when the day to day sends motivational achieved in training sessions to overwhelm back in the real world? Well, there's a load within that as well, but the overwhelm, generally speaking, the overwhelm is created because we're collecting ideas. We've got so much to do because we don't have clarity or clear direction around what it is that we want to do. So the first one is always work out where you're going personally and in the business. If you've got too many customers and therefore you're delivering loads of work, you haven't got enough capacity, then we could increase their prices, remove some of the customers. If we've got customers delivering records late and you're running around on a Saturday night at 10 past 11 or whatever it is to file VAT returns, then that's probably a question of self-worth. And do you believe you are worth better than that? And if you do, then we just need to find the courage, take action, and tell the customer that, and then just don't let it happen again. Stick to your guns. Now, so normally motivation, you can't motivate somebody. I'm even challenged sometimes as to whether you can motivate yourself. It's you want to be good. We all want to be good. We all want to make progress, and it's the things that get in our way of that stop us from making the progress. So if we remove those things that are stopping us, then we naturally bubble up. The energy bubbles up, and away we go. Martine's asked, how do I change the mindset? Well, I've given you a few things with that. Change the story is the number one. Change the story that you're telling yourself. You'll become very conscious when you've worked with this sort of stuff for a little while. You'll become very conscious of the stories that you're telling yourself, and more importantly, the customers are telling you. And it'll say, so how are you getting on? And they'll burst into this story about how this happened and that happened and this didn't happen and away you went and all the rest of it. So think about how do you change your mindset is ultimately how you change your stories. And if you catch yourself being negative or having a story that isn't particularly useful to you, then make sure you go through and just catch it and say, oh no, that's not how I'm going to be anymore. This is the story that I would like to tell myself, the positive affirmation that I'd like to tell myself. Paul's question around how you stop self-sabotage, I dealt with a little bit earlier, but normally that's around self-worth and your limiting beliefs around that. And you need to get rid of those limiting beliefs about where it is or what you're capable of in order to stop self-sabotaging you when you get there. And then Jerry's asked, if it is mindset, how do you improve this? Well, I've challenged you and talked to you about that all the way through today, Jerry. So I hope you've got some value out of that. Right, so they are the questions that I was going to share. I've shared the concept and the mindset. I hope I've given you lots of ideas as to things that you can do in order to improve your mindset going forward. And as I say, the scorecard app link is in the chat box. Click on that. It will take less than 3 minutes 34 is the average time that it takes somebody to complete it, and it will give you lots of ideas, especially around the mindset section. If that's where you think you might be struggling, it'll give you lots of ideas around that as to things that you could do next. So let me just check. Yep, that's it for now. So thank you for coming along. As I said, I know it's a busy week of the month for lots of people because of the VAT returns and whatnot that have got to be filed at the end of this week. So thank you very much for coming along, and I hope the webinar has inspired, challenged, and supported you to run the best practice you can. Thank you. See you next time. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you for watching Why Smart Accountants Still Feel Stuck. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please post them below the video. If you've got value out of today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you would like to get notified the next time we put a video up for you. Somewhere around on the screen right now are 2 videos that we recommend that you watch next in order to inspire, challenge, and support you to run the accountancy practice you want.